Hey, good morning, guys. We're just going to do the quick investor summary on Invest Australia. So we're going to go through it quite quickly, obviously recording it, so everyone that's watching, we're going to try and keep it tight within about 10 minutes. So Invest Australia is the new product that we're launching in the Brisbane area. We're going to run through a video of the overview and then go down into Brisbane from a macro level down to micro level.
Capitalize on the fastest growing first world property markets. Invest Australia will introduce you to select property investment opportunities. This will become your tool to gain exclusive insight into the Australian property market. In the last 10 years, the Australian dollar appreciated by 62% against the rand. Australia has a strong performing property market, with Brisbane seeing immense growth. Over the last 25 years, Brisbane's top 10 suburbs have all experienced over 8% growth per annum. Secure your wealth in a stable economy. Invest Australia is your one-stop solution for effective offshore investing.
Okay, so the last slide showing a 19% yield is what we're going to go into today. We're going to just flick through some of the stats to generate why those numbers are where they are. But before that, we're just going to talk about ourselves as developers. So over the last 4 or 5 years, we've been developing along the Umhlanga North Coast Precinct, new area called Sabaya. That's the Pebble Beach, Ocean Dune and Gold Coast developments. And then obviously on the ridge at Umhlanga is the Umhlanga Arch, which is home to the SMG building, the Hilton Hotel, the Residences and some commercial space. Collectively, over the last 5 years, the net value of that is about 8 billion. So the Devemco are responsible as the master developers on the stuff that we've done locally. We've also got ties into the Australian market, predominantly around the Brisbane area. And we're going to show you one of the investments that we actually plan on launching now. So the Signature Holding Group has been going for about 10 years on developments, and over the last 15 years has been doing smaller developments going up to the stuff where we are now, which is pushing out about 100 apartments, townhouses, etc. a year. So why Australia? I think the question that a lot of investors are asking at the moment is, how do I hedge my rand? How do I keep it safe and at the same time have a return? So Australia for us is an emerging market, but it's quite advanced. It's very stable, very high level of medium income people that live in that area. So it's very sustainable. It's not subject to the dollar links or oil links. Even during the crisis, although they had a little wobble, it was actually very stable. So we see Australia as a safe place to invest your money. And at the same time, there's some nice capital growth and nice returns on the investment as well. So we're focusing on Brisbane. Brisbane is an area that is actually one of the largest immigration areas in Australia at the moment. So the price per square metre is still significantly lower than Melbourne and Sydney. So there's a lot of value still to be gained there. Obviously, if some of these stats that you see up here, one of the world's most livable cities, forecast over the next 2 years to have a 13% growth in the capital value, which is significantly higher than what we've seen in Sydney and Melbourne. It's got a much higher rental demand, and that's due to affordability. The price point per 2-bed, 2-bath apartment, as an example, versus Sydney is about half. And as you see from the stats above, one of the most livable cities. So really good to live in, pretty similar to a Durban lifestyle. So more quality of life, but as you can see from the image, some significant growth in the cities. So it's obviously stimulating the economy. And one of the major effects down on the bottom is expert rate Brisbane best city to invest 500k in property. So our price point sits directly under that banner. So we're just going to have a quick look at the highlight of Brisbane and why Brisbane. Interesting from those stats, you see that although it's only 19% of the population, 35% of the population believe it's the best place to invest in Australia, showing the value and the intrinsic value per square metre that exists in that central CBD area rather than the sort of famous Sydneys and Melbournes that people have been investing into over the years. So if we look at our 19% cumulative yield, one of the stats which we've played on is that, which is every 7 to 10 years the property prices double. Because Brisbane's an emerging market at the moment in terms of internal of Australia, we should see it doubling every 7 to 8 years. I think we've banked on a capital appreciation of 8%, which infers every 12 years, so it's quite a conservative estimate. So that's the capital appreciation portion, reflecting what doubling every 12 years, and that's a uncapitalized income on the capital. So basically, if we take into the effect of capitalization on that growth, it actually should be substantially quicker. The Australian dollar hedge, we're going to have a look at some graphs just to show what that's done over the last 10 years. And I think even previously before that, if we brought in a 20-year stat, we'd see that percentage grow. And then the return per annum is symptomatic of the Australian market, generally 4.5% to 5%. And with the rental yields, creeping up in Brisbane, we feel quite confident that 5% is very achievable. So when we group all those three items together, we get that 19% per annum cumulative growth, and that's ungeared. If we gear that, obviously this falls away because effectively your 50% bank debt is sucking up your rental per year, and it actually breaks even in terms of paying off capital and interest. But what happens is, obviously, because we've geared 50%, these two stats double, which shows a 14% double, 28% net effect on a 50% gearing. So this is what the Australian dollar's done. Starting here down in 2010, we're pretty much at the end of 2019, so 10 years later, sitting at about 6.3, and currently it's sitting at about 10.1, 10.2, obviously peaking up towards the 12 mark at a high point. So really it's gone from sort of 6 to 10, which over the 10-year period represents 66% growth, sort of 4 Rand on the 6 Rand. So this is what's interesting and sort of my reason for investing in Australia, particularly in the Brisbane area. Tertiary education is a major factor for South Africans and their kids and even their grandkids. And I think this stat here points to why the tertiary education facility is so in demand in Australia. So it sits 4th in the world compared to South Africa down there, which is at 30th in the world, 47 as an index score versus almost 93. That's pretty much double. One of the really great things about that is that if you own a property in Australia, your daughter, your son can go stay in it, rent out one of the rooms. That's their income while studying. And then the cool thing about the visa process with a student is once they enroll in a 4-year degree and qualify, they get citizenship. Once citizenship is granted with a residency, it's much easier for the parents to get a residency visa on the back of their kids, being obviously Australian residents. So this is the development that we are introducing first. It's our first development which we're launching on the Invest Oz campaign. The reason why we believe this fits the mold is it's within the CBD surrounds, so it's about 15 kilometers outside the city centre, which we'll show you where that is exactly. The price point of $400,000 to $450,000 ticks the box in terms of the optimum yields. It's a 2-bed, 2-bath design product, which is perfect for students sharing, young corporates, or even families. The units themselves, as you can see, there's quite a few options, but basically they're all in the region of about 84, 85 squares internal and 15 squares of external space. The ground floor units have gardens, and then we've got a couple of 3-beds, which are the 101 square meters internal with 15 squares external. So as you can see, just typical unit, bedroom has ensuite, and then obviously lounge, dining, kitchen area, utility space, and then the outdoor sort of covered balcony space for braai or whatever. So that's a sort of a very classic Australian apartment design, and highly demanded from a lot of the medium upper income younger guys, startups, as I said, students, or even elderly folk. So the big thing about these units and the rental demand on units is that 90% of Australians won't buy. They would prefer to rent, and the rental releases some more capital for them to actually use to spend on lifestyle. And I think the stats in the Brisbane CBD at the moment is that 90% of Australians, new Australians, won't buy ever. The 10% that do buy will take 7 years to save the deposit. So you can see from the socialist type of economy that it is, highly geared towards enjoying lifestyle and really using every cent, not focusing on acquiring property. And I think the reason for that is that there is so many safety nets in place, pension schemes and medical schemes, the schooling systems. Unlike South Africa, we've sort of got to make sure that we supply our own pension schemes. The location of this development is just off the main road here. That's very important because that's the preschool. Most young parents will both work to obviously derive enough income to live. So these schooling systems become very important for the preschools. We've got a state school up there, which is quite a decent school. All the shopping facilities are here. Sporting facilities are there within about 500 meters away. And then what's really nice is that you've got this major arterial route which links up and then into the CBD. That's the main bus stop, which is the public transport system actually works really well up there in the Brisbane area, so it allows students to get up into the university zone here, which is the I think it's the Griffin University, the North Nathan campus. That's a very, very good university system. I think it sits about 3rd or 4th in the country. And then obviously there's the CBD there, which is about a 15-minute commute into the CBD, which in Australia is actually very close. So the facts about the Brisbane property market, and particularly this investment, is that the rentals sort of about 420 to 450, so 430. It's exactly what the market is prepared to pay. It sits underneath the average price for the area. It is close to all the CBDs, schools, hospitals, retails, and transport systems. This particular node hit a 14% growth spike in 2018, so it's definitely on the up. And I think this is an important stat here, is a 2-bed, 2-bath option, and there is an option to buy another parking, so it'll be 2-bed, 2-bath with 2 parkings. All the units come with 1 bay in the basement, but to have 2 bays means that you can multi-tenant 1 unit, i.e. 2 young professionals, 2 students. So the process for this acquisition is quite simple. It's very similar to a product that you would buy in South Africa. So we basically say what we do is we want a 30% deposit. Then we have a 20% balance if you're going to gear at 50%, so that will flow in 6 months' time. So the 30% gets you basically the holding deposit. That then gets lodged in a trust account. A sale agreement will get signed. Once that sale agreement is signed, the funds will be cleared with your FICA documentation, probably through investing to attorney's account, trust account in Australia. It's lodged there. The 20%, which is the balance of the 50, will flow within 6 months thereafter. The banks there, Westpac and BOQ, will give you a guaranteed 50% facility because of the equity you're putting in. So once the transfer goes through, i.e. the property is ready, the money flows, the bank bonds kick in, and your equity flows. So none of the money gets used during development. It's all safely tucked away as per any other transaction in South Africa, legitimate transaction, and it'll transfer on occupation of the property. One of the big things there is the rental and the maintenance of your property, which sits here, is Signature Management Real Estate is a company that's a subsidiary of Signature Property Group. They will source your tenants, they will deal with all your admin, pay your bills, your levies, and transfer the balance into your designated account every month. On top of that, they'll give you quarterly updates, they'll give you your statements monthly, and do the routine inspections. So I don't know if we've got an example of a routine inspection here. Here it is here. So that's basically a general the paperwork that you'd get for a lease. So it'll tell you who the person is that's buying it. It'll actually give you due diligence on the tenants, show you what they earn, their track record, and then on changing of tenants, we'll go through every single item. This is just an indicative list on one of my apartments actually. So just go through everything, make sure that everything's in working order, then a full photographic survey of the site, of the property, quite a detailed analysis looking under the sinks, into the drawers, into the ovens, opening up all the aircon grills, and then they'll give you an assessment saying, right, the tenant has looked after the place, it's fine, it gets deep cleaned by the managing agents and then handed over to the next tenant. I think one of the big things that's so appealing on the tenancy market there is that the rental is paid weekly, and the system is geared at protecting the landlord. So if your tenant defaults, he's warned. If he defaults a second time, he's flagged. If he defaults a final time, he's blacklisted, which means he can't rent nationally. So the landlord really is protected, and you don't get into a position where you have 3-4 months worth of arrears. We're talking about weeks, so it's week 1, week 2 is warning, week 3 is blacklisting. So you really are protected, and your tenants generally don't want to step out of line because they won't be able to rent nationally. So it's a really safe investment as you're going to get. And then obviously cumulatively on top of all of that, you're getting your rental, you're getting your capital escalation, and you're getting your rand hedge. So we believe in the products. So I'm just going to open up for any questions if there are any questions.
What is the completion date for Signature Property?
So we anticipate starting probably about April next year, and we see a 12 to 14 month process in terms of construction development. So it takes us to probably August, September, and then say allow a month or 2 for the legalities for transfer. So realistically, from now, say the end of November, I would expect in 2 years from start to finish all of it.
What type of finishes are you expecting?
So fully air conditioned, porcelain tiles, your normal glazing systems, Caesar stone tops, equivalent to our Huntsgrow type taps, the oven hob, and the laundry actually goes in. Those facilities can go in the washing machines, go in as well.
So you get appliances as part of that?
Yeah, those are included. So what you'll need to do as a landlord, you need to put an appliance, and that's literally it. You rent it as that.
Charles, why don't you check that's over there?
Okay, so the interest rates currently for foreigners range between about 6% and 7%. So we believe that if we've got enough of a mass, i.e. we want to have about 20 to 30 foreign buyers, we'll approach the Westpacs and the BOQs and try and get it towards the lower end of the scale, maybe even getting down below the 6%. But we anticipate about a 6% return, and a 6% lend rate. On that lend rate, if you gear 50%, with the capital repayments and the lend rates, you actually break even. It leaves a little bit spare for bits and bobs, but that includes all your levies, a maintenance allowance, and all your utilities that you have to pay.
And then once you've got a lending facility with a Westpac, for example, is it quite easy to remortgage that facility?
Yeah. So what Australia did as a banking centre is they stopped foreign lends up to about 2 months ago because the Chinese were coming in and acquiring mass amounts of property. Sydney is a classic example. They just allowed the property market to run away because they would just come and buy blocks. So they've stopped the lend. They've just opened it again about a month ago, 6 weeks ago. And that's because they need to encourage foreign investment because the Australians, as I said earlier, don't actually buy. So the bank lends have been so low that they've actually realise that they have to lend, so they're lending that 50%. And I do feel if you get more than one or two, and as the property value grows, you can revalue it and then gear it back down to the 50%, which allows you in say 2-3 years' time, even if you want to pay 100% and then gear later and to buy more assets, that's also a good option. But they are quite flexible with that as long as the intrinsic value of the property is there.
You touched on the process in terms of funds through possibly investing. How would that work for me as a purchaser? Yeah, what will my funds go to?
Okay, so the funds will go into an attorney's account here locally as your sale agreement signed. So if you bought a local property, you'd have to sign an investment mandate form, which puts your funds into like a 6% yielding account. A very similar process there, where the funds would be lodged in a normal attorney's account, which actually is an investing account. All your standard documentation that you have to do for a normal acquisition. That would then allow the investing account to get the clearance, send it over to Australia, it gets lodged into another trust account there. You would be updated the statement that all your funds are now moved over, statement from the clearing attorney plus the receiving attorney verifying that the funds are there, and then it literally just sits there until the development's ready. So it's pretty much for the buyer, it's as if you were buying property there.
Do you earn interest on your deposits?
Yeah, you do. So there's two trains of thought. Obviously, you can send your 50% there and leave your 50% here if you're going to pay it fully. The interest rate that you will acquire there is like very, very nominal. It's probably 1 to 1.5%, purely because the prime lending rate there is like 4.5%. So it's not big shakes in terms of return there while the money's sitting dormant. But what you could do is you could actually leave or 20% that you have to send in 6 months to the last month to put it in. So you've only got 30% sitting there. However, then you are exposed to the potential rand-dollar exchange. So if the dollar runs and you 10% down, then you have to pay in that extra bit of difference. So my advice is rather get the 1.5% and know that you've got the rand hedge. Because even while the money's sitting there, you're still getting that rand hedge and the capital appreciation asset. So although your cash return is not as good, you're still getting that capital growth and the rand hedge. The rule of thumb in Australia is if you buy something for $450, you'll get $450 a week. $450,000, $450 a week. And at this price point, you actually see it just clicking over that number. So to buy a $650,000 apartment, you actually don't get $650 a week, you'll probably get $550 to $600. So as you get over that $450, $480 threshold, it starts going the other way.
Then once you pay your 50%, are the chances pretty good of you getting a bond in others? Is it almost guaranteed that you will get a bond?
Yeah, so the 50% is pretty much a guarantee.
Yeah.
So banks see that there's so much security in the cash and the asset that it's actually a fait accompli. Very, very simple to do.
Okay.
I think they're going to be a little bit more aggressive and actually start lending a little bit more. But as I said, the 50% gearing allows the asset to wash its face. There's no input every month, with paying the capital. So that to me is the optimum, 50-50.